What is up, everybody? Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Your Ex Drinking Buddy with me, your host, Brennan Tassif. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Check us out on YouTube. Full video available there. Check out the merch store. Look at all this stuff. We got all this stuff on the merch store. It's all available on the website, BrennanTComedy.com. You can also get my tour dates there. Every show that I have coming up, I'm going to be in New York, traveling the country, doing a bunch of gigs. So check it out. Get tickets at BrennanTComedy.com. Check out the merch store. And lastly, if you really want to support, go to www.patreon.com/BrennanTComedy. And that is where you can find Tales from the Restaurant, where I divulge everything about the celebrities I wait on. And also a little bit of behind the scenes. You'll also get the episodes early, a bunch of bonus episodes. Check it all out. Thank you so much. Enjoy the episode.
Grab me a beer and grab him a coke. We bout to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brennan T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Your Ex Drinking Buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the program, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was my favorite thing to do. Hang out with friends, get drunk, do drugs, get in all sorts of trouble, and then reminisce about those crazy stories. I'm sober now, but it's still one of my favorite things to do. Hang out with somebody and reminisce about the crazy old days. Most weeks I'll be joined by a guest. This week is no exception. All the way from New York City, Shaun Murphy.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course. Before we get too far into anything, you have a new special that just came out.
Yes.
Let everybody know where they can find it. Plug away.
I appreciate it. It's called Long Story Thin. It's on Mark Norman's YouTube page. It's a solid 42 minutes, so you don't got to waste a full hour on me. You know, take that 18 minutes, do whatever you want with it. And it's solid. Check it out. And, yeah, I got another special on there if you like that first one called Neil, and I appreciate it.
Called Neil.
Neil.
All right. So you did it through Mark Norman.
I did, yeah.
Okay. Mark comes into the restaurant a lot. Very interesting guy. So I want to talk about you.
Yes.
Because before we get into any of the stories, which you hit me with a curveball, which again, I was telling you, and the listeners know this, is not as uncommon as people would think.
Especially among comics, I feel like these days.
So, yeah, especially these days. So back in the day, we would hear stories about Belushi and like Sam Kinison and all these guys and Lenny Bruce, like doing drugs and getting arrested and heroin and coke and all this kind of stuff. More and more, it seems to be a thing where people are like, yeah, I don't really, because I've reached out to a lot of comics and they're like, yeah, I don't really have any, I don't do that. And I'm like, well, you're still a great comic. I still want to have you on the show. We'll just talk about other stuff. And you.
I wonder why that is. I feel like it's a mix of. I also feel like we're so squeezed now that it's like I couldn't even afford.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford to do heroin. Even if I wanted to, and I don't. I could not, I couldn't buy that now.
Well, and it is an interesting thing because with what we're asked to do.
Yeah.
Also, so you don't drink, you don't do drugs, never have, you just don't do it. And I want to get later on, after we talk about comedy stuff, we'll get into the why and the where and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But I find it fascinating because I'm sober, like I'm real sober. Not like, oh, I say I'm sober on stage to get an applause break, but then I go smoke weed after the show.
Right.
Like I'm legit. I don't do anything except like caffeine, really.
Yeah, I don't even do caffeine anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to talk about it. Caffeine, and then I also do nicotine. That is another thing that I do.
People, I see those everywhere. Those are like the Zoom of...
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard about Zyn till 2022. And now every single person, every man comic I see has a Zyn.
So I did it because I smoked. Okay. I was like I'm.
So you're like a real Zyn
yes,
user.
To get off of cigarettes.
I feel like Zyn's like trendy now.
Yeah, it is very trendy because it's
like avocado toast for
100%.
Male comedians.
Yeah, well, because a lot of those guys like Gillis and all them were talking about it, and then everybody who listens to them was like, "Oh, we got to get Zyns." So then you get all these guys who are like, those guys, and they're like, it just became a thing. I did it because when I went to rehab, I picked up smoking. Okay. Because I was eating a lot of sugar because your body craves sugar when you come off of drugs and alcohol. And I had gained like 30 pounds in a month. And I was like panicked because, I used to be an athlete and I was like, I'm like a garbage person now. And one of my buddies who's a recovering heroin addict from Boston was like, it's because you're eating candy all the time.
Yeah.
And I never even put two and two together. I was like, oh, he goes, if you want to stop eating candy, you should smoke cigarettes. And so I started smoking, and I hated smoking.
It's like one of those, what's that, like, not like a riddle, but you know that like old story where it's like, we have a mouse problem, so you get a cat.
Yeah.
And then you have too many cats, and
Yeah.
you got to get like,
It's
like
the very,
you keep like building
It's like
up.
the Zen master.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
see. We'll see.
So now, is the idea behind that, because I know nothing about it, is it to get off it? Like in a year from now, will you
So
stop?
so I was smoking cigarettes, and then I was like, I have to quit. And I told myself that when I started smoking, I was like, listen, I'm getting off of like being an alcoholic, getting in a lot of trouble. Like basically my life was in the toilet. So I was like, smoking will be my vice. And shout out, like there's people in my family who were even like, he has to quit smoking. And then other members of my family would be like, he stopped doing coke and booze. Like give him something.
Yeah. Or even just give him a couple years.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah. And so then I was like, well, I'm going to get off of it when I'm 35. And then 35 came around, and I would try all these things to quit, and I couldn't. And I hated vaping. I thought it was just like a cop out. Plus, when I smoked, I liked smoking. Like I don't like a blueberry, strawberry, like I wanted the cigarette.
Isn't it crazy? It seems like cigarettes were the toughest thing for you to quit.
Yeah. No, honestly.
Yeah.
And so I stopped. And then long story short, I got on the Zins. They have a much higher milligram, a 6 milligram. And so I started doing that. And I actually enjoyed that more because when I'm working and stuff, I wouldn't have to stop working. I could just pop in a Zin instead of stopping everything I was doing every hour and a half to go outside to smoke. And then obviously, like, my fiance loves it because I don't smell like cigarettes. Yeah. She always said she would never date someone who smoked, but and I showed up and she's like, all right, we'll give you a pass. Yeah, now I'm down to 3. So the goal is to be completely off by the end of this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's a real thing. Like,
how much do those cost?
These, so a pack of cigarettes in New York City is $20. These are $7 a piece.
Okay.
So it's significantly cheaper, which is also a benefit as well. But I was going to say earlier, we were talking about like drinking and drugs and stuff and just not having the time. I think a big thing now is what is asked of us as comedians. Because it used to be you show up, you do the spot, you get paid, you go home.
Yeah.
But now it's like, hey, you also have to film, edit, post. You have to be your own marketing manager, your own media manager. So it is one of those things where it's like, I just don't have, like, if I got drunk tonight, like the next 3 days are gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, I have to post twice a day every day. So like, I can't afford that. So it's not as much party lifestyle anymore being a comedian.
That's true, and people they really kiss the ass of this new lifestyle because there's no gatekeepers, which I get there's positives there, but the negatives is like we have 20 jobs.
Yeah.
It used to be one job. It used to be funny on stage.
That was it.
That was it.
And then some person would see you and be like, hey, I book all these shows.
Yeah.
Why don't you come do these shows?
And now you don't even, the thing that crushes me is like you don't even talk about comedy anymore. You get together with friends and it's like, it's the amount of time you're talking about who's funny, new bits, it's like 10% now. And now it's like, when do you post? Would you do this? Is captions? Do you, like, it's all stuff we shouldn't give a fuck about.
Yeah. And it's frustrating because to your point, like when I was back in Florida before I moved to New York, my friends and I would just like sometimes you would talk about social media stuff, but none of us fucking knew what we were doing.
Right.
Nobody cared.
Yeah.
It was just a lot of like, hey, I thought of this new tag. Do you think this works?
Yeah.
And then someone would be like, why don't you tweet? Like comedy. That's what we would talk. And then I moved to New York, and it went from like 90-10. 90 comedy, 10% like other shit. And then I moved to New York, and it completely flipped. And I've become, the listeners know, I've become a huge victim of it, where I'll be on the podcast with people who have like a big following, and I'll be like, so when do you post? Like, what do you do with your captions? How do you catch people with the title card?
And it's you just got to catch yourself because that's A, not why you got into it, and B, like, if that all works out, who cares if you're not funny?
Yeah. Yeah, I've had that experience. I have a good buddy of mine that's been in comedy a long time, and I talk to him about it a lot because I don't consider myself jaded. Like, I still go to the Cellar once a week. Like, I still watch stand-up, even though I've been in and out of it since 2009, and I've been, like, back in it since 2018. I still love comedy. Like, when a new special comes out, especially a comedian I like, I'm like, all right, I got to set a reminder. Like, I got to find time to watch this. But it is a thing where I would talk to him, and I'd be like, I don't get, like, this person's just not funny. And I think I'm okay. Like, why are they so much more successful? And he would always tell me the same thing. He goes, listen, that's all well and good. They're good at social media. They're young. They're hot. Man or woman, doesn't matter. He's like, but they'll do their run. They'll get booked on this tour, and people will come and see them because they have the following. And then they'll do it again. and people might not come and see them.
Yeah.
And then they'll do it a third time, and then there's probably not going to be a fourth.
Or maybe they'll jump to something, and then you'll go like, oh, I wouldn't have wanted to jump to that. They were using it as a launching pad that, you wouldn't even want to do anyway.
I've had people on the show like that I've seen perform and be like, oh, you're really funny. Come on the podcast. And I'm like, why'd you get into stand-up? And they're like, well, I just really like attention, and it was the easiest barrier of entry to get into show business. And I'm like, I've made a terrible mistake.
Well, it's good to like comedy. I think a lot of there's a lot of traps comedians fall into, and I think we all have to dance with the devil a little bit. Whether it's you're doing social media stuff, podcasting stuff, you find something you like, you do it. But like, it is interesting. So many comedians I talk to, they're like, don't care about comedy, not even don't talk about comedy. They're like, oh, did you see that new special by this person? And they're like, no.
Yeah.
And you're like, why not? You listen to 8 hours of comedy podcasts to find out gossip about someone, but like you won't watch the thing that Martin Scorsese watches movies.
Yeah.
He's not like, oh no, I'm too much movies for me.
It blows my mind how often I meet people and it's like, or like, you have people and they're like, oh, like the sketch thing came out, and I'm not throwing shade at anybody. The sketch thing, everyone's doing sketches. And I was like, that's where I drew the line. I was like, I'm not a sketch guy. Like, I do stand-up. And I would even have bits where people were like, that's a sketch, bro. And I'm like, no, it's a fucking bit. Didn't you just hear me say it on the stage? And that was where I kind of drew the line. And hats off to my friends, because they're getting a ton of followers from it and stuff. But I was like, yeah, but that doesn't... What I ultimately want to do, and what my goal has always been, is to make enough money to where I could quit the restaurant job and just do podcasting and stand-up full-time. Sketches doesn't play into that because it doesn't, to your point earlier, it doesn't put me where I want to be.
Well, at some point, you just have to hold the line with why you got into it. Like we all do things sometimes that are like, I like doing this thing. It's not my main thing, but it could help, blah, blah, blah. But at a certain point, like you don't wake up in 10 years, even if you're successful, and be like, well, I do sketches and I do front-facing videos and I do no shade to that if that's what you want to do, but like if that's not what you want to do, there's I quote it all the time. I don't know if you ever saw Citizen Kane, like still like great movie, but like there's a line that I think about all the time where, and I'm sure I'll butcher the exact wording, but one guy's like, it's not tough to make a lot of money if all you want to do is make a lot of money. So like if like, which is very true, like if you have no morals or no stand, you could rob a bank, you could take some shit ass finance job that is like, like if you really just focused on money, most of us can probably find a way to do that. But at some point, it's just like, well, what do you kind of want to do?
That's a really good point, because I face that all the time with my job, because I work at a swanky steakhouse, and it is one of those things where if I worked 5 days a week, I could clear close to $200,000. And I have to, not have to, because it's kind of ingrained in me, because I like comedy is my life. But there'd be a lot of times where people are like, hey, why don't you just slow down on comedy and work 5 or 6 days a week? And I go, because I didn't move to New York to be a full-time server. Yeah. Like I would have stayed in Florida where the rent is cheaper and there's no state income tax. Like why, what? Yeah. But to your point, it's like I could make a lot more money, but it's like, that's not why I'm here. Right. It's not why I moved. Yeah. Let's talk about you. Comedy. Yes. You love stand-up. Yes. That is very apparent from our conversation. Yeah. When did you first find stand-up? The reason I like to ask this is because comedy in itself, especially stand-up, is a niche thing. Like we're in it every day, so to us, it's like our lives. Yeah. But if you just ask a random person on the street, they throw out names like Jerry Seinfeld and Dave Chappelle, which are huge names, but it's like, oh, you don't... Like, I've had guests be like, oh, I love comedy. Who's your favorite comedian? I go, oh, like, I love Bill Burr. And they'll be like, who? And I'm like, oh, you don't know comedy then. Yeah. So for you, how did you even find it?
I was just on all the time, which is another thing. Probably fetishizing the past, but like you put on Comedy Central and it was stand up almost 24/7. It was old SNL, South Park, Daily Show, and stand up. That was like they played like 5 things, And also it was great because it's no algorithm telling you. It was like, do you like this comic? Do you like this comic? And part of the reason I like watching a lot of stand-up even still is like there are some people I'm like, I don't think this person is funny, but then you'll be like, that's a great joke.
Yeah, I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday.
Or you just take little things of like, like little tips, tricks, ideas, or where you go like, that's a great premise, but he went that way with it. I would go this way. Oh, is there something here? Or you go like, oh, I like the way that she does this. That's a real smart way to like, you just kind of, you kind of like learn stuff. But yeah, it was on all the time. And I just was like really into it. And I was like, dude, should I try this? I was in college and
so you saw it as a youth, as a youngster.
Yeah.
And it was all the way, because I love these little details. You had it in the back of your mind, but it was all the way until college where you were like, oh, maybe I should try this.
Yeah, so I probably tried it when I was like 20, 21, somewhere around there. So I'm at about 20 years, and I started it. I took a class, which I also think is overly shit on. I think a class is like going to a gym. It's basically you're putting money down to force yourself to do a thing.
And it's one of those things where if you don't have a starting point, like I went to my first open mic.
And they're intimidating. An open mic is so intimidating.
I was hammered when I went to my first one, and it was a disaster. Yeah. But like you meet comics, and then you go, "Hey, where do I go?" But for a lot of people, it's like that's so intimidating that they're like, "I'm not gonna just do that." Yeah. So I say it all the time. I think classes. Now I think if you get to a certain point in your career, it's like now what are we doing? Right. But I think just especially as a starting point,
and you get a crew. It's like I don't know how many people. You get people, whether it's 4 to 12 people in a class, so you get to meet people immediately. It's a nice environment.
Going to? Let's go to this thing. Hey, I'm doing a show. Let's do here. Yeah. So where did you start?
Buffalo.
Yeah. Buffalo. Okay, so you're from the Northeast. Yeah. Are you originally from Buffalo? Yeah. Okay. For everyone listening, he came in with a Bills hat today after a devastating loss my Jacksonville Jags had at the hands of the Bills. And I was like, I didn't even know you were into football. And you were like, no, I love it. And I was like, cool. Josh Allen, king in the North. So where did you go to college?
Also in Buffalo.
Oh, yeah. You went to
University of Buffalo.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, go Buffaloes.
No, close.
Isn't it a Buffalo?
No, but you're close.
Take Bisons.
Also close. It starts with a B. Take the Bills and change a vowel.
Bulls.
Yeah. There you go.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Home of Khalil Mack went to UB.
Oh, yeah. That's the one that I know because when he was coming out in the draft, everyone's like, this guy's awesome. Yeah. But he went to Buffalo.
He went to Buffalo, yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah. And he was so good. Yeah. So you're going to the University of Buffalo and you just decide one day, hey, I want to sign up for this class. Was it festering? Was it something you always thought about? Or were you just like, today's the day?
I think it was almost kind of on a lark. Me and a buddy both like stand up, and he was like, why don't I forget who brought it up, but he was like, oh, why don't we do this? I'm like, yeah, I'll do this. And, and you just kind of do it, and you like it, and you keep doing it, and then you blink, and you're like, wow, it's been a lot of, like,
it's been a long time. Yeah. So is that what happened? You just you did the class, and you were like, oh, this is the thing?
Yeah, I didn't love it right. Some people love it right away. I did not. I think I had a public speaking thing that took me a while to get over. I feel like there's a couple different people. Some people are like, I like being the center of attention, and then they need to learn, other aspects. I learned how to write and stuff. And I kind of liked writing, and I need to learn how to, like, perform and not hate it.
Yeah. I've had people be like, your stage presence is great. Now if you could just write some real jokes. And I'm like, cool. So I got the one part. I just don't have the other one.
It was funny. It took me a while. Like I was reading off of note cards.
Oh,
and
really?
Like,
yeah.
Stuff. It took me a while to just be like, okay.
In it.
Yeah.
So.
I also, not to interrupt you, but a thing earlier, talking about how niche it is. When I started 20 years ago, there were like no comedians. There were no podcasts. It was like very uncool. Yeah. In Buffalo, there were like 8 comics.
Because we're around the same age.
Yeah.
You're a few years older than me, so I would have started. The first mic I would have gone to would have been a few years after you. Okay. So same. Yeah. Like 2009, I was like listening. I think there was a couple podcasts out. I think I was listening to like Jay Moore's podcast, or maybe because I know Tom and Christina's came out in like 2010. So around that time, like it just started becoming a thing. But similarly, my cousin introduced me to Comedy Central Presents. So I would record them on VHS and just watch them over and over and over. Yeah. Like I still can, like I ran into Tom Rhodes a few months ago and I just was joke quoting him from his original Comedy Central Presents. And he's like, dude, I've forgotten those jokes. Yeah. And I'm like, James, here's your cookbooks on you motherfuckers. And then I remember it was right before we were outside of the cellar. God, this must have been years ago. And right before he went on stage. And then he did one of those bits and like looked at me and was like, huh? And I was like, oh, that's so fucking cool. Yeah. But it's not what it is now. Like,
yeah. When I started, there was a kind of a B-level club called Comics Cafe. It went out of business in my first year. And then my first like 6 years, there was one open mic. Once a week, there was one open mic. And not only that, but there was so little comics. If you went to hang out, they'd be like, please go up.
Yeah.
So the show can be a normal length. I mean, nowadays you could go to any mic in America and they'll be like, we cap it at 50.
Yeah.
There's no spots left. Like, but it was not that way when I started.
I remember when I got back into comedy, this was 2018, so not even that long ago. But similar to what you're talking about, when I first got into it, as you said, it was nothing. There was like a couple open mics here and there. Then when I came back, it had become more prominent, but still like our open mics in Jacksonville were shows.
Yeah.
Because there was so little comedy that it was like, oh, well, all these comics are getting together at the back room of this bar. Let's make it we had regulars that would come out and like audience members, and it was like a thing.
Yeah.
And then when it like blew up, I would say like pandemic, post-pandemic, then it was just like, oh, now it's just all comics. Because comedy became so like in the zeitgeist that everyone and their mother started like, I got a show. And then it just became so flooded.
Yeah, which is, of course, there's good and bad to it. Like, there's part of me sometimes, even when I go back to Buffalo, there's like 6 mics, and I'm like, guys, what if you just did 3? You know what I'm saying? Like,
100%.
where we're like, then you're not like, how much new stuff are you writing? You know, like then you could all go and support.
Yeah,
there's more likely to be people there. There's more likely, like you expand too much, and you
oversaturate the market, and then it loses its value. And it's so funny you say that for 2 reasons. One, whenever I do produce a show, and I don't do it very often, but I always charge for tickets, and people go, you should make it free, more people come, and I'm always like, but that's the thing, is if people know it's free, a lot of times they just won't show up. Like, that's a problem. And also, like, it gives it more value. People will have a tendency to pay more attention if they paid money to see it.
Yeah.
And I've done plenty of open mics with audience members and plenty of free shows to know the difference. Like, and I'm sure you have too, where you get on stage and everyone's like talking or texting, or they don't give a shit because they didn't pay anything, so they don't fucking care.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, cool. Love this. This is great. But so you get into comedy, and then you've seen it. You've seen the whole evolution of it. What was the idea when you moved from Buffalo to New York? Because so many people I've had on the show, and I'm guilty of this as well, but it's like, I want to do this, but I don't know how feasible it is to financially survive doing this.
Yeah.
So you obviously get into it in college, and then when you graduate from college, are you like, it's comedy, or did you go get a day job and like, I'm still doing mics?
I mean, I kind of built up the bank account in Buffalo, and I was like, that way I could go to New York. I could really kind of give it a go.
Yeah.
The thing I realized, good or bad, is I'm now at a point, and this took me a couple years, but I like stand-up enough that I know I won't stop doing it.
Yeah.
Which in and of itself is kind of freeing, that I know that like, even if...
Nobody's going to fire you.
Yeah. Well, even if I got to get some type of day job, I know that I'll be at the bank and I'll be like, oh, that water bit. I mean, maybe there's something there. I'll swing by that, Jim will let me up at that show, and I'll swing by after and I'll try. Like, I know that that's kind of always going to be.
I mean, I'm living that life now, where it's like, I still have to go to work, but in the back of my head, it's like, well, it's always and it's become so much of a lottery ticket now.
Yeah.
Where people are like, oh, well, if one clip goes, and I'm guilty of it, one clip goes viral and my whole life changes, which is 100% true. But the thing that I love about it, similar to what you're talking about, where it's like, yeah, but I never stop, right? Lenny Bruce is the last line in his book, which I love, his autobiography. It's somebody asks him, where do you find inspiration? And he goes, everywhere. And that's kind of how I operate. Not saying I'm anything like Lenny Bruce, but like just in life, like you see something and you go, oh, that's a bit.
Yeah.
Or I'll be telling someone a story and they'll laugh and I'll go, wait, is that a bit? And that's just how I always operate. So I'm like, oh, I'm never going to stop doing that.
Yeah.
And it is very freeing to be like, yeah, I could be 47. I'm still making great money at the restaurant. And then I'll just keep going to like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah. And also you realize that like, maybe that's not the goal, but also that's not the worst thing in the world. That like most people stop being creative for a lot of different reasons. They kind of too busy. They think that it's not worth pursuing if you can't make money off of it. And you like, you do a thing where you get to meet new people all the time, and you have like and how many adults do you know that stop making friends after college?
Yeah.
There's all these benefits that come with it, even if it's not your, you're killing it making money off of just the art. You know?
And it is, and it's like I don't know. It's just, I say this all the time, and you kind of touched on it earlier, but to find something that you truly care about as your passion even if you find it at 35, I found it at 12 when I first watched stand-up, and then I started doing it at 22. You found it, a few years in after trying it. You said you started to fall in love with it. And to find something that you care about, because people live their entire lives jumping from one thing to the next.
Right.
You get an office job, you get the wife, you get the family, and you're like, oh, my family is like the thing that I care about. But you on the inside never found your thing. Mm-hmm. And I feel like as comedians, especially people who love comedy, who do comedy, we're kind of fortunate in that it's like, oh no, this is the thing. Well, I found it.
You know, it's also fortunate. You talked about playing college ball. How many people find their thing and can't do it when they turn? You know what I'm saying?
It was my entire identity, and then when it was taken from me, when I got my eighth concussion, I was like, it's that scene in Friday Night Lights, the movie with Boobie Miles, where it's like, what am I gonna do if I can't play football?
Yeah.
Like, who am I if I can't play football?
Yeah.
And I went through that crisis, and I got the arrest record to prove it. Like, I started drinking and doing drugs because I was lost. I was like, who am I if not a football player? Yeah. And then I found comedy, and I go, oh, got it. This is what I'm going to do now.
Yeah.
And I was one of those assholes who changed everything on social media to Brennan T. Comedy after, I did 2 mics.
Oh, yeah. That was like, big for a while.
And this is back in, 2010. And I was like, yeah, I do comedy.
I remember someone I knew made his thing, whatever his name was. Let's say his name was Jeremy Strong. I don't know, but he not only changed his name to comedian Jeremy Strong, it was Dash Comedian, because back in the day it would organize by, and I was like, oh, that motherfucker, he thought of how to get to the top of everyone's list.
That is the AAA auto insurance or whatever
100%.
So you said you for about 6 years there was one mic in Buffalo, and that's the mic you were doing. So this is obviously from college, out of college. What did you major in?
Business and then media study.
Okay. Yeah. And then did you go get a day job, obviously, in Buffalo?
Yeah, I mean, it was mainly I got a temp thing, and then a bank hired me, and it was all I knew I probably wasn't going to do this forever. It was just a thing and get some money, and then I think a lot of comics make the mistake of they move to New York and they have $8, and then they're like, why am I sad all the time? And it's well, because your whole life's sad.
Sean, we're not talking about me. Let's talk about you.
You need some things going right in your life, because comedy is gonna punch you in the face so often that have a significant other, have a place that you like living at, have some money in the bank account.
Dude, I strike down on all the stuff you're talking. I can speak from experience.
Well, so many people do that, and so many people do that, and it breaks them, and they're like, well, of course, every part of your life sucks.
Luckily, I was fortunate that I was born in the darkness. I was molded by it, so it didn't break me. But I moved here with someone who's now my ex, who was cheating on me. I moved here with basically all the money and I give her credit. We would not have been able to move here without her. She was the better saver. She was the one who got us here. Basically, her credit score was way better. So we moved here together, and I had not a ton of money. I was working a restaurant job, but I was like, I just finally moved to New York. I'm going to pursue comedy. So I was working 2 days a week at the restaurant, not enough to cover a lot of bills.
Yeah. And
I was struggling. And then I found out that, her and I had to break up. It's that great Sam Morril bit where the guy's like, yeah, no, I broke up with my ex. And he's like, why? And the guy goes, because she was cheating. He goes, I think she broke up with you then, right? But it was very much so we decided it, but I was just oh, this sucks. No money, living in an apartment with 2 strangers that I found on Roomster.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of I got comedy.
Yeah.
It was tough. And yeah, to your point, had I not had the past that I had, I probably would have been fuck this, I'm going home.
Yeah.
I don't care. But luckily I was, enough adversity to where I was this is fine.
Yeah,
I have a bed. What? I've been homeless before. What are we talking about? So you move to New York, you save up a little money, and I love these little details, so forgive me that I keep harping on them.
Yeah,
but what is that like as a kid from Buffalo? You get into comedy, you're doing it as often as you can, even though it's not that often. Take us through that transition period to be you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to New York. And what it was like when you first get here. Are you going to mics? Just take us through that scene, because I think that's really important. That's to your point, that's the difference between where you are now with a special coming out, versus spending 3 months here and being fuck this, I'm going home.
Well, for good or bad, I kind of really took my time. So I did comedy for 10 years before I moved to New York. But actually 8 years. Well, maybe. Hold on. Let me go through the timeline. Maybe it was about 6 years. I moved to New York City for 1 year, and I kind of planned it was going to be like a short thing. I moved in with friends. I had a good opportunity, and I was like, okay, I'll move here for a year, and I'll kind of get the lay of the land. I'll see what comedy's like here. You do some shows, and it was a thing where I did some shows, and it was tough, and I go, okay, I need to get better. So I go back to Buffalo, not completely tails between your legs, but a little bit of like, okay, now I know what it takes. So I'm going to save up more money, and I'm going to really go through the material. Because sometimes, especially coming from a small town, you do stuff and you're like, this bit kills. And you go to New York City and they're like, that bit's fine. Yeah. But and you're
imagine coming from the South.
Yeah. And
you're like, all this stuff works. Then you come to the Northeast and they're like, boo. And you're like, fuck.
But I think a good comic takes a little bit of lessons from everything. Because I also know funny Brooklyn comics that I'm like, go do 25 at a bar in Buffalo. Good luck.
Yeah.
But also I can't necessarily take that 25 and then go to Brooklyn and kill it. But I think if you take the lessons from both, you could be able to kill them both.
100%.
So it's just kind of I gave myself time to learn that lesson, go back to Buffalo, lick my wounds, get better, and then move back here, kind of knowing what it takes and being ready to. It was a lot of practicalness.
Yeah. No, and that makes a lot of sense. It's very interesting because to relate it to sports, it's like, you go to the D1 school fresh out of high school and you're like, this is fucking hard. You transfer to a 1AA school for a couple years and then your senior year, you're like, you know what, I'm going to transfer back to Georgia. And you're like, all right, now I know what we're doing.
But it's funny because a lot of, you see that a lot in college where it's like, unless you're a generational talent, you look at a lot of people that's like, oh, Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen both went to these
Wyoming
small,
and Cal,
small schools. And even before that, they weren't heavily recruited going into those places.
Joe Flacco is still slinging it. Is a blue hen from Delaware.
Yeah. So it's a lot of you kind of learn your lessons and also fail in the darkness.
Yeah.
You don't got to come here and fail. Learn your lessons when no one's looking at you.
That's a Mark Normanism. Yeah. Because I've heard him talk about that on. I mean, it's not obviously it's been around forever, but I've heard him talk about that a lot. Where it was like, when I moved to New York and was doing mics, I did them on the other side of the city. Because I didn't want people, because I knew eventually I'd be on McDougal. I'd be at the Cellar. And I didn't want those people to see me bombing at Mike's. So I did it over there.
Yeah.
I did the opposite. I moved to New York and I was like, so I started comedy in 2009 between drugs and alcohol, took a lot of breaks, got back into it in 2018. By 2020, I was like, because there is this false sense of if you've done it before and you get on stage, especially in a small market like Jacksonville, you're kind of like, oh, this isn't, I'm pretty good at this. Mm-hmm. Hey, how you doing? Because it's not... there's not a ton. We've got some great comics in Jax, but there's not a ton of them.
Right.
It's just a lot of dudes who listen to too much Rogan talking about how women are dumb. And you're like, oh, these guys suck.
Yeah.
And you blow them out of the water.
You go on stage and you're like, women aren't bad. And they're like, who's this guy? Saying something interesting up there.
Who's this fucking guy?
Yeah, interesting.
But you know what I mean? You and then you're kind of to your point, you can kind of almost get an overblown view of I'm actually pretty good at this. And then I moved to New York, and I remember, I've told the story.
And you go out and you're like, women aren't bad. And they're like, yeah, we know that. We all know that already. And you're like, oh, I'm behind these people. Shit.
Women aren't bad, right? No applause break. What's going on, guys? But then I also made the mistake of, I've been doing comedy for a while. I think I'm pretty good at this. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hang out at the Stand in the Olive Tree. And I'm not going to go to these smaller clubs. I'll just hang out at the big boy clubs. And then Esty will see me and be like, who is this guy? Mm-hmm. And it took me almost a year and a half to be like, oh, that's not how this, you need to stop this now. Mm-hmm. And go to this, go to the Pear, go to Greenwich, go to these smaller clubs and get in with those people to get stage time.
Yeah.
Because it's not like Liz or Esty's going to walk up to me seeing me eat and be like, hey, you want 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Which is, as funny as it sounds, I watched Crashing a lot. I watched all the show. I was like, oh, that's how New York works. You just run into somebody and they're like, hey, kid, you got some spunk. Get on stage. And then I moved here and I was like, not how it works at all. Not how it works at all. Yeah. So when you take the year off and then come back and you have more of an idea of what's happening, are you like, now I'm staying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long were you gone for? So you were here for a year, then how long did you go back to Buffalo?
I'm going to say 2 to 3 years, somewhere around that time frame.
And then you get here, and then what was the first big break you had when you moved here?
So part of the thing that my 2 to 3 years, I was also it was again, talking about how comedy has changed. It was a better time for comedy because I was able to just open up for people. Like headliners weren't allowed to bring people for the most part, so I was able to open up for a lot of people. And one of my big things was like, the couple clubs I was in with, I was like, I will open for any New Yorker.
Oh yeah,
because I'm gonna go to
That's
New York,
smart,
so I'll open for any New Yorker you have. And I met Norman, I met Soder, I met all these people that I still like open for and I'm friends with, and like, but just kind of obviously I would take any other gig too, but I was like, my preference.
This guy's from LA. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. My preference would be New York comics, and then when I moved to the city, I knew a good collection, and they were only able to do so much, but it's having a nice base of like, hey, where do you hang out? Where do you, can I, if you have a show in the city, could I do that? Or I could go and hang out at their shows and be, kind of, and then meet some of their friends.
Just
and kind of
having that entry point is so important.
Yeah.
And I say this to especially newer comics all the time because I know some bigger comics, and a lot of it has been because of the restaurant. Like sometimes when people will be like, how do you know so-and-so? And I go, well, they're a regular at the restaurant and we just became friendly. But having that way in, because if you just cold walk up to a big comic and they have no bearing on who you are or what's going on, a lot of times you can come away from, in my personal experience, I can come away from that experience being like, man, I really thought I was going to hit it off with them and I just didn't. But also to their credit, it's like, yeah, they don't fucking know me. Like, why would they? Yeah. But if you just have that thing, like, hey, I open, and this, I tell especially younger comics this all the time. And I say younger age-wise because obviously I'm not like, I'm the same age as a lot of these comics who are huge. But it's like, I'm still where I am. But I'm always like, if you were on a show with them, if you met them somewhere before, lead with that when you say hi. So it's like, hey, so-and-so, Brennan, remember we did the show together in Jacksonville? And just out of politeness, they'll go, oh, yeah, of course, how you doing? Even though they could be like, I don't fucking know this guy.
And also even just doing the road the little bit that I have, you kind of realize it's like there's so many people you meet, even just for like 2 days. Yeah. And then 3 years go by and you're like, oh, yeah, I guess I remember. Like, you meet so many people,
100%. And it is like, because I've gone up to bigger comics who are adjacent to some of the comics that I know and been like, hey, and thinking like, oh, well, I know so-and-so, they know so-and-so, thinking we're going to connect. And they're like, hey, man, what's up? Yeah. But like that other person's not there to be like, oh, this is my friend Brennan. So I'm just kind of like, hey. Yeah. I heard you on a podcast. I think we get along. And they're like, the fuck away from me, weirdo. So what was your first big, because you talked about knowing some of these other comics and stuff. What was the thing where you were like, oh, this might be working?
Well, it's tough because it's also, as you pointed out, you moved to a city and it's very like humbling because you can't help, you have a little bit of ego. I mean, other people more than others. And you want to, as you get older, a big thing is kind of killing that ego a little bit. I think that makes you a better comic, better person. But still, you kind of get to the city and you're like, well, I'll probably do well. And it's kind of like, now you start kind of from zero. 100%. You again, having people helps. But like, you start meeting people and it's just a process. You meet people and they go, oh, this guy's not bad. And you go, oh, you're not bad. And you start kind of doing things. So it took a while. I mean, I think in every career there's a little bit of level ups, and I think, I was still kind of doing the road here and there from here, which was helpful. But I think, just meeting more people, getting comfortable in the city, that's a level up. And then through my buddy Joe Garrix, me and him co-ran a show at New York Comedy Club, which I still do, and that was helpful because it was like, okay, now I'm able to like book
running
people.
A show, you can
run a show. It's at a like a good club.
It's a great club, yeah.
And I'm able to book people, and we get to meet each other through that. So like,
and people are just blowing you up. Yeah. Hey, can I get 5? Hey, can I get
So that was a little level up, and then probably getting past the Cellar was huge, which was 2021. Fall of 2021?
Because the Cellar is obviously the North Star. It's the beacon. What was that? Because I've asked every Cellar comic on, so I'm going to ask you as well because you're a Cellar comic. What is that moment like? You go to do the audition, and we've talked about it on the show a lot, how, it's a lot of times it's the Friday show at 7, you get 5 minutes. Normally the host goes up, another comic, then you do your 5. And we've heard stories from it was super stressful to like, I didn't know what to do. One comic we had on said like, Esty made me wait for like an hour before she called me over to the table to tell me what's going on. I thought for sure she just forgot about me. Yeah. So for you, because to me this is a thing. Like it is the thing. So I love to hear these stories of like, how did it happen? Like what happened?
It's kind of crazy because there's a little it could be different now, but it's like there's a little like mysteriousness where I think
100%.
Norman was like, I put in your name, and then someone else was like, oh, your name got brought up, and I correct you, and you're like, does that help? Does any of that? When am I gonna find? Like you don't kind of know. Like there's no. It's very like.
There's no like memo that gets sent
right.
out. Like just so you know, your name was recommended and it was co-signed.
And so I'm like, okay, that's good. And then
are you freaking out when when Norman tells you like, hey, I wrecked you? Like
no,
because
you don't even know, like, and you forget about it. You don't know, like, and then I just one day I got it.
That happens to me. I don't mean to interrupt, but that happens to me with festivals all the time. I'll submit, and then for 2 days I'm like checking my email every 5 minutes, and then by the third day I completely forget.
Which is good though.
Yeah, and then you'll get an email like 3 months later, and you're like, oh yeah, I did submit to that.
Yeah. So and then I got an email that was like, can you audition like tomorrow? I think it was like, can you audition tomorrow or Saturday? And I was like, I asked for Saturday because then I was like, Friday I could go out and just run the 5 at a bunch of shows, just in case, like, because there is a thing of like, all the jokes, but you don't necessarily do that 5 in that order all the time. So I was like, I'll ask favors, I'll do a bunch of shows. So
just
then
hammer out the 5.
Yeah, so I hammered it out of Friday, and then I did it on Saturday. And
were you nervous about? Yeah. So when you get the email, are you like, what is the emotion that are you like, this is awesome? Oh my God, I'm shitting myself. Like what?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of everything. I remember being nervous. I mean, the good thing.
This gotta be crazy to just open up your phone and see that email and be like, the fuck?
Yeah. And it's funny because they're so, and I don't know if everyone is like this, but they know they're the 800-pound gorilla. So it wasn't even like, come to the cellar, and it's like, it was just like her being like, audition this weekend. Are you in? Like, which is just such a.
It's very like mafioso.
It's
like
funny.
Here's the time, here's the place, be there, and you're like, of course.
And it was a thing too.
Should I bring anything?
That I always tell people to calm them down is like, the club's amazing, and you're doing the best 5 you've ever said in your life. So like, you're primed to succeed. Which you hear about other clubs doing auditions, and it's like, they don't do it the right way, and you're like, oh, the seller wants you to succeed. You're put in a nice, I mean, it's nerve-wracking, of course, but it's like they do it, so you're like,
they put you in the best possible position.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're absolutely right. I've been to clubs before for auditions and stuff, and they do it differently.
Yeah.
Where it's very much like someone will send me an email and be like, hey, there's no mention of audition. It's just like, hey, I got you a spot on the show. Show up at this time, and then you show up, and like right before you're about, and I'm like, I'm gonna sandwich in a couple new jokes, I'm gonna try and work on this, and then right before you go up, they go, oh hey, the booker's here, this is kind of like an audition, and you're like, the fuck are we, what? What?
Or they do a show where it's all auditions, or something like that, and you're like,
I've been on some of those too, where they're like, the booker's in the back of the room, and you're looking around, you go, wait, none of these people are past here, and you're like, oh cool, awesome, great, thanks for the heads up. So you go and do the 5, and then did you get off stage like nailed it, or?
I felt good about it.
Okay.
It was good, and then she kind of sat me down and was like, she never, as far as I know from other people, she doesn't really say like, that you're past, congratulations. It's like, here's the email to send in avails, and then but you're like, okay, I think that's good, and then the real kind of thing is the 2 months after.
Yeah.
Because then you're doing 15, and you're going, you're at 1 a.m., you're at 7 p.m., you're going after killer comics, you're going first, you're going last, they're testing you, and then like, that's kind of the real audition.
Okay.
Is can you hang?
You crushed it.
That was
5 years ago. You're still there.
But it's like a thing of like, it's the best club, and it's like, I mean,
it's the best club in the world.
In the world, yeah.
In the world.
And the first couple of years, it's like you're kind of like making money, but it's also like a thing where like, they're not there to subsidize your career. So there's going to be weeks where you're like, man, I got one spot, or I got like, it's just kind of the way it is. And you look at the schedule and you're like, oh yeah, well, Ray Romano's in town. I would book him over me too. So like, you can't get.
I would book him. If I was the booker, I'd be like, no, I'm taking the week off.
You can't just be like, I'm set now.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good mentality to have, because you want to be write a new. You want to be doing comedy other places. You want,
Yeah.
So it like that was a big moment and still is every time I'm there. But you can't like rest on your laurels either.
And on that point, because I've had quite a few seller comics on the show, and some of them have been there forever. Some of them are newer. I want to ask you your process. A lot of times people are like, it's always the best that I have. If I want to do new jokes, I fucking find a friend to book me on a show somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm still that way. I mean,
Okay.
the set evolves. Like, I'm not doing the same set I was doing there 4 years ago, but it's a thing of like, I'm working a new bit, not there until it's in the act, and then when it's in the act, I do it there.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. And have you found that to be a pretty, like, as far as you know, up to this point, that's a pretty safe way to kind of go about it?
I think so, because I'm doing stuff that I'm like, I know this stuff works. I mean, you don't, obviously, different audiences, different, whatever. But like, yeah, you feel comfortable of like, this set works. I know all the beats to this set. I'm not going to be up there going, and then what?
I don't know. My tick is I'll do this, and I go, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I remember I was featuring for a buddy of mine, and we were going all over the country, and by like the third show, he goes, stop saying you don't know. They don't know you don't know. Stop saying it. And I was like, good point.
Yeah.
He's like, you can just take a beat. You don't have to go into the microphone. I don't know. What's next?
Yeah. Very true.
But to your point, once you get it all worked out, it kind of just flows. And
Yes.
you're like, oh, this is fine. Speaking of being humbled, because you had mentioned that earlier, and I know I'm always just like, I don't understand. I'm better than this person. But I've bombed so many times. Luckily, I've done better, I think, than bombed. Mm-hmm. But is it a thing when, like, now, obviously, been a seller comic for years and stuff like that, does that present some sort of, not challenge, but kind of almost barrier to where, like, if you think of a bit, you write it down, you try it at a couple other spots, obviously, other than the seller, and it's not working. Are you like, no, I know this is good. Like, I'm going to keep doing this because, like, I know I'm a good comic because I'm a seller comic?
It depends because there are some, I mean, that's the tough thing with new material is sometimes you go like, there is something here, and sometimes you go like, now what was I thinking?
Yeah.
That's a tough line to know when to give up. And I tend to probably give up too quickly, but I don't know. Sometimes you see people really like, man, you're still trying that joke?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm that guy. Because I had a friend once tell me, a Jacksonville comedian, very funny guy, Chris Buck, shout out Chris. He, and I'm going to butcher this, and he always will send me a text and be like, that's not what I said. Mm-hmm. But something to the effect of, people who do comedy, especially for a long time, are naturally, like, they are funny people for the most part. So if you think of a bit and you're like, oh, this is funny, like there's something here, then you should probably go with your instinct. It's probably funny. And it's your job or my job as a comedian to figure out how to create the vehicle to give it to people so it is funny.
Yeah, but that's what I like about comedy is like we're wrong so often. Yeah. I've seen the funniest people in the world say something and be like, okay, I guess there wasn't anything there.
I've watched,
and
especially living in New York, you see huge comics bomb all the time.
Yeah.
And you're like,
yeah.
Ouch. That sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because like a lot of my material, because I want to get it all out there, but I still do a lot of material about getting sober and all that, like my past. And when I do like fundraisers or AA room, like, a lot of times they'll do like a charity event or something. And when I do those rooms, I fucking destroy because everyone can relate to the material.
Totally.
And then I'll go like to the stand and be like, I'll do one bit and it's all the espresso martini, like, well-to-do Park Avenue people. And they're like, no.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, cool. I guess I'll just go fuck myself. Comedy's subjective, right, folks? All right, here we go. I wanted to ask you, because you've never drank or done a drug.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you, when did that become, like, obviously it's not who you are, but when did that become a thing where you were like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do this?
Yeah, I wish I had kind of like a sexy story. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Where like, but there's the truth of the matter was just, I was getting to that age and no one drinks responsibly or does anything, they do it at 10 out of 10 when you're 16, 17, 18, 19. And you just see people losing control. You see people like, you're like, that throwing up doesn't seem fun. Or you see people just like spending money like them, like I didn't have. And you're like, I don't really know what the benefit is here. Because especially when you start doing comedy, you're able to hang out late at night. And you're like, well, if I can hang, I'm still hanging with these people. It's not like I'm at home in bed at 8 p.m. So I'm still around. I'm still getting the social aspect of it. And then you're like, but if I don't do this other stuff, it kind of seems like a win.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, because you went to a big school. Like, the University of Buffalo is not small.
Yeah.
So, like, it's one thing because I didn't drink in high school because mine was for other reasons. Like, my ex-stepdad is an abusive alcoholic, and I was like, booze is poison.
Right.
I saw what it did to people, and I was like, I'm not going to drink as, like, a moral stance. And then towards the end of high school, I tried it, and my anxiety and depression all went away, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. So then that's kind of was the foreshadowing of this might become a problem.
Yeah.
But then, like, you went to, like, so it's one thing to not drink in high school, but then you go to a big school.
Yeah.
And are you just like, nah, I'm out?
I lived at home during that time, which also in retrospect was so smart because I left with no
Saved
student
so
debt.
much
Yeah,
money.
so much money. That's where really they get. If you could do it,
Dude, I got a $50,000 student loan bill.
Yeah.
And I was on a partial scholarship.
if you could do an in-state school, an in-state public school, and you're able to live at home, I mean, that's like
That's the move.
That's the
Or
move.
be on a full ride.
yeah.
Or be very good at something to where they pay you to go
100%.
there. So one or the other.
Yeah. So I didn't have a lot of those. I don't want to say temptations, but it's just. And you know what? Another thing too is you become. I think this an underrated thing. If you're a drinker, if you're a drugger, you need me.
Yeah.
I kind of make everything run. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I'm the DD.
Yeah.
We're at a party. We run out of booze. I'll go grab booze.
Yeah.
I'll go grab.
So
a
you're
25.
down to be like, hey, I'll help out. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I'm kind of.
You're the utility guy.
Yeah, and in a sense, a lot of my friends kind of almost didn't want me to drink. You know?
Yeah.
It's because growing up in Buffalo, you could drink in Canada at 19.
Okay.
So like friends would be like, "Oh, we got like a hotel room. Let's come up." And it's like, well, I could drive everyone.
Yeah.
I drive everyone back. I could kind of mother hen people a little bit to make sure people were having fun and not getting too crazy. Like in a sense, I was like a glue. I was like, I was the glue guy on the football team.
Name of the episode. The glue guy.
You need those people on a football team. I'm sure you had guys that like
I am
this
the glue,
this is not a top 10 athletic guy on the team. But this
Hands
guy,
up, this
guy is big. He's keeping morale up. He can make a couple plays on special teams.
Yeah, if you need him to. He'll turn it on. He'll headbutt people with their helmets on and be like, "Let's go."
Yeah.
That's me. That was me in sports, and that's me in comedy. Like I'm probably never the funniest person on a lineup.
Yeah.
But I'm in the green room like, fucking great set. That was all. Like I'm getting people hyped. I'm getting the crowd energized.
And you need, because there is a line between having fun and obviously having a problem, and sometimes you need that friend that's like, why don't you switch to water for the rest of the night? Like you're good. No, you're good. Switch to water for the rest of the night. And then you wake up and you're like, thank God I switched to
God, you're the blue guy, man. Do you find it? Because I have run into this, and I want to know if you've run into this too. Because we hang out with comedians, and some of them do still party and drink and stuff. Have you ever been in a situation where you're like you're hitting it off with someone that you maybe have not? Let me reframe that. So have you ever been in a situation where you're talking to someone and then you're like having a great time, and then after like 10 or 15 minutes it clicks in your head and you go, oh, they're fucking hammered?
Yeah, I mean that is the one bad thing is you're hanging out and there's someone who's just too drunk. When someone's too drunk, I've been more around alcohols than I have like other drug type people, but just people you're like, man, I can't even like talk to you. I can't even like fake this.
Yeah.
Like that is a bummer that you try and be like, hey man, especially if you're not like a close friend. It's like, hey, you're kind of on your own here. I can't like babysit. You're an adult. I can't like babysit.
I'm not your glue guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because I've had it before where it's been twofold. Like I've been fortunate enough to been invited to after parties and stuff, and I go. And it's only because I know someone who knows. You know how it is in this industry. So someone will text me and be like, "Hey, so and so said so and so gave them the password at the door for the thing." And so you show up, and I just you say like pineapple, and they're like, "All right, come on in." And you're like, "Cool, like I'm doing the New York thing. Like I'm at an after party. This is crazy." And then everyone's so shit faced. You're like, "Oh, even if I meet like some of these people are my heroes, but like it's not gonna matter." I've met Dave Chappelle 19 times, literally, because he's at the Stand all the time, and that's where I used to hang out a lot. And I've met him so many times. Never, obviously, he meets so many people, but it's also like, and he's also drunk most of the time. So it's like, It's not like we're gonna be buddies.
But I will say, as you get older, people start sobering up, and there is a thing of like, I'm mostly around people that don't.
Yeah.
That don't or do it lightly, and you know what? Sobriety becomes a huge asset as you get older.
Yeah.
I would talk about it as a little bit of an asset in my 20s, but like when you get older, especially you're around comics that are sober, they're almost like, well, I want to be around someone sober too, because whether they're still like on the fence or they don't want the temptation or they just know that like, hey, at the end of the show, we're just going to get an ice cream and go to bed at 11.
Love an ice cream at the end of a show.
Totally. So like, you have more in common and it's more of a benefit.
Yeah, I've had that in New York where I've had like, there's something going on and I've talked to people being like, hey, are you going to the thing? And like, I don't know, man, I don't really. And they go, wait, are you going to the thing? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to check it out. And they go, can I go with you? Because they know I don't drink. So like, they're trying to like kick drinking or they're trying to take a break or something. I have found it to be a benefit where people are like, well, let me go with you. Let me see what you do.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows you don't drink. Like, let me hang out with you and see. Because some people just can't fathom the idea of like, wait, you're going to go to this bar to hang out with friends and not have a drink? It's like, yeah, it's not rocket surgery.
And obviously,
like, it's not that hard.
I'm not anti any. That's a thing too.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you never had alcohol, people kind of. There are some people that like, what do you think you're better than me? There is there is that kind of.
You think you're better than me?
There is that kind of attitude some people have sometimes, but it is like. It's
and then you tell them the truth. Yes, I'm 100%
way
better.
But it's complicated because in one sense, alcohol is a poison.
Yeah.
It's carcinogenic. It's not good for you. But at the same time, like, of course, it's like, life's hard. Go out, have a couple drinks, have fun. It's a social lubricant. It's like you hear about kids drinking less, which in a sense is good, but also they're
fucking nerds.
They're more depressed. They're not going out. They're
on their phones all the time.
Yeah. So it's like, there is a balance there where it's like, I don't drink at all, but it's like if you have a couple throughout the course of, a month, it's like, yeah, let's go out, have some fun. That's, there's no judgment to it.
That is something, and I was talking about this with a guest I had a couple weeks ago. Because I'm sober, so obviously, if you say I don't drink, that's different than saying I'm sober. Like when I identify to people like, oh, no, I'm sober, but thank you. And a lot of times I'll make the joke like I would, but my sponsor like freaks out about it. And sometimes, most of the time it gets a laugh, but sometimes people get real weird. And it is one of those things though where people will then feel like, oh, now I can't drink. And I'm like, you can do whatever you want. Like,
oh my God, I can't tell you how many times.
I can't tell you how much I don't give a shit what you do.
I do think as you get older, like, being sober is a huge benefit. Talking about in comedy, I think in dating, there's a little bit of like, oh, you're mature. I know you're not gonna like fall off the wagon. But there is also, you'd get, when I was dating, I got a lot of messages like, oh, like, can I drink? And I think sometimes people they're weird about it. And I don't not get it. It's like if you go to a restaurant and you're not eating, the other person is like, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Is this okay? Is this okay?
I never thought about it like that. That's a great analogy. Yeah.
And it's like, it is. I'm not hungry, but like, I understand that you're hungry and I'm not sitting there judging you eating spaghetti, you got to eat. That's fine.
That's a great way to put it because I never thought of it like that, but it is like, I've just always been
But we've all been in those situations where you're at and you're like, I'm hungry, and it's like, I'm not hungry, but like, we want to talk.
Get into it all the time.
Yeah, like, let's go, and
She's like, what are we doing for dinner? I go, I don't know, I'm not that hungry. And she's like, what do you mean you're not that hungry? And I'm like, you eat. I'm not. I'm fine. Yeah. You do you. I'm good. Yeah. What is because there is a benefit to being sober. We've talked about it, especially in comedy. Because the first few years I performed before I took my break, I only performed hammered, like out of my mind.
Which is bad.
I would run the light.
It's a bad look too.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
And I talk about it sometimes on the show, but the show is called Your Ex Drinking Buddy because like I'm always been, just that's the point I want to kind of nail home. And similar to what you're saying about being the glue guy, it's like I'm always down for like whatever. Just because I'm not drinking, I'm not doing the drugs, doesn't mean like I'm gonna be the wet blanket to be like, oh, this is despicable and like go home. Like I'm down.
And you do, it's tough because there is a line.
Yeah.
Like if
people are shooting heroin, then I'm like, guys, this is awkward. I gotta go.
Right. And it's like you shouldn't do that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like,
by the way, this is very bad for you. I'm gonna head out.
But if someone's out there having a couple of drinks, or even they're like, I want to get drunk tonight. You're like, go for it.
I got your ride home.
Exactly.
I did have a friend, and he knows who he is. I remember saying to him one time, because he's a big party guy, and I remember saying to him one time, I go, it's kind of cool that we're still friends after all these years, because we knew each other in Jacksonville, and then I moved to New York, and then he moved to New York shortly after. I was like, oh, it's cool that we're still like friends. Like, you don't do comedy as much as you used to. I do comedy way more than I used to. But like, we still like find time to like go to dinners and have fun. I go, it's also cool that you still like to party because I get to kind of like live vicariously through you. And he was like, yeah, that's cool. A few hours go by. He like held on to that. We get into an Uber. And I've never been in a Tesla, and I'm talking about it. And he's convincing the driver to like fly down these avenues and stuff. And then he pulls cocaine out of his pocket. And I go, what are you doing? We're in like a stranger's car. And he goes, welcome to Vicarious. And just starts doing. I was like, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. I meant the fact that you could have like a couple drinks at a bar. Not doing cocaine in the back of an Uber where you're like telling this guy to speed through Manhattan, dude. This is
also
nuts.
like, I also know you can see me. You know what I look like. You kind of know what my vibe is. I don't think people are coming around me and they're like, dude, fentanyl, me and you? like they know what I
they're like,
anyway.
This guy's not doing that.
Yeah.
I did want to ask when it comes to comedy, because we were talking about it where I was a disaster. So you've never had that experience. You've always kind of, and I've had a lot of people on the show where I say, send me your stories. And one of them, probably one out of every 5 guests, one of those stories is I was so drunk on stage or I was so fucked up on stage. And I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of wanted to ask you though. When you, whether it's someone you know or not, and whether, it's at a club, you're on the road, whatever. If you see someone, because this is something I still have not mastered. If you see someone and they kind of get a little too fucked up and then they go to perform and you're on the same show, are you, especially if it's a weekend somewhere, are you taking them aside? Are you saying like, hey, what's going on? Or
you don't see it as much anymore.
Okay.
I think that kind of the word is out. I mean, if you see it at like a mic or some type of like low level show, you could kind of write it off and be like, maybe this is a new comic. They haven't learned the thing, but it is, comedy is interesting because so many people do it to an amateur level, but at a certain point, if it's your job, like if you're getting paid to do a show, it's like, hey man, I don't know what to tell you, but there's people that paid money. You're being paid money. You can't go and you can't do your accountant job drunk.
Yeah.
Like you gotta, you could have a drink.
I get sent home all the time.
But
I used to when I was drinking, I'd show up to work and be like, hey, you guys. And they'd be like, you're going home now. And I'm like, what do you mean? And
I
like,
think that there's
get the fuck out.
There's an element people are like, this is comedy. It's like, okay, yeah, but it is a job.
Yeah.
And at some point you have to take it a little seriously,
It is interesting when you meet the people who they act like they talk like it's their job because it is a cool job. It's one of the coolest jobs in the world. So they'll talk like it's their job, but then they don't treat it like it's their job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, you're one of those.
Totally.
And you're like, I mean, I've been treating it like a job and it still like barely pays me anything.
Right.
But and same what you're talking about. You move to New York, you go back home, you get better, you come back. Like, you're like, no, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
But it isn't interesting because even in New York, like these are, and you might not see it as much anymore because you're big clubs and you're doing like these big, like these shows, these venues. I see it a lot more because I still go to mics and do all that stuff where people will be fucking housed at 3 p.m. at a mic, just talking shit. And you're like, yo, you moved across the country.
Yeah.
Like spent all your money to do comedy. And this is how you're acting?
Yep.
The fuck's wrong with you?
100%.
And it blows my mind because it's like, no, you made it.
Yeah, and I'm sure there is a psychological reason that if I sat down, like, I probably don't drink and do drugs because there's a little bit of like, I don't like being out of control, and there's probably
That's the common answer
there's probably
I get,
like a control kind of reason there, and just like kind of scared to not quote unquote be yourself or whatever it is. But there is a lot of just practical benefits that I remember coming to probably after that. That was like, I'm not going to be in that situation, or I'm not going to run out of money stupidly, or I'm not going to, like all these kind of things that are practical that like doing comedy, doing anything in the arts is so impractical. And it's such a 1 in a million that even if you just casually party, maybe that goes from 1 in 1,000 to 1 in 10,000.
Yeah.
And it's just trying to move the needle back just a little bit time at a time to make it like kind of feasible.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right because it's fucking hard. And there's a great line from the movie Road Trip, which I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's a movie from like the late 90s, early 2000s.
I mean, I get DJ Quails a lot.
Oh yeah. So
people say I look like a DJ Quails.
Yeah.
And that was his big movie.
Yeah, that was the big one. But there's a great line in it where he goes, if it was easy, they're talking about a shortcut, but it's the same logic. He goes, if it was easy, it would just be the way.
Yeah.
Like it's supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
Because if it was easy, everyone would do it, and it would just be the way we go.
Yeah.
And I think about that with comedy a lot, especially living in New York, where it's like, yeah, it's supposed to be hard. So if there's anything you can do, and obviously staying sober, not drinking, not doing drugs is a benefit. I joke with someone at the Cellar a lot, Liz at the Cellar. I joke with her all the time where I'm like, yeah, if I started drinking again, it's not unreasonable to think that I would show up to the Olive Tree drunk and be like, where's my fucking opportunity?
Yeah.
Like, that's not beyond the realm of reasonability. And she's always like, Brennan, if you ever did that, you realize like you would never, ever be able to even come here to eat dinner.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank God I don't drink. Because I used to be that kind of drunk where like I was always a fun time, but I would fester on like spite. I'd be like, this person fucked me over. Fuck that.
Yeah.
That's the reason why when I would get drunk on stage, I'd run the light. Because I'd be like, fuck you. I'm getting laughs. Come get me off the stage.
And sometimes a fun time is not fun for you.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's other people like, look at this crazy guy punching a hole in the you know, like they're having fun. But, and maybe you in the moment are having fun.
And you wake up with a broken hand and you're like, what the shit, man?
Yeah.
Dude, this was a blast. Plug your special again. Let everybody know.
Long Story Thin on Mark Norman's YouTube page. Check that out. I got my first special called Neil on my YouTube page. And follow me on Instagram. I am Shaun Murphy. Shaun, S-H-A-U-N. And thanks for having me.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on. Shaun Murphy, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for listening at Brennan T. Comedy on all social media, BrennanTComedy.com. We will talk to you all next week. Boom, we're out. Dude, that was great.
Hey.
See, I told you we'd make it work.
Absolutely.